let's talk Avengers Age of Ultron, and this is the spoiler video for the movie, people. Spoilers. I don't want you to watch this video and then be mad at me because I told you stuff that you didn't want to know, because it's a spoiler video. I have a non-spoiler video. I will leave a link to the video in the description, so you should check that out if you haven't seen the movie. But if you have, or you don't care about spoilers, stick around, because it's going to get pretty interesting. Alright. Now, this movie was freaking dope. I love this movie. I think I may like this movie just a tad bit more, or a tad bit less than Avengers. I'd have to see it a couple more times to really make a full conclusion. I'm not 100% yet, but I really did like this movie. So first things first, let's start off with the plot of this movie. This movie, as soon as it starts, it takes off. As soon as this movie starts, it's an action scene. This movie does not slow down. And it's so good. Like that scene in the trailer where they're all like together and like it goes in slow motion, Hulk's in the front and, you know, everybody else is doing their cool action pose. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's like the first thing that happens in the movie. And then the pacing is just slightly off with the movie, because you can feel, you can get a vibe that certain things have been cut out of the movie, because certain things are brought up but aren't there just a little while later, but then they come back. So I'm hoping that when they release the 3.5 hour, almost 4 hour cut of the movie, I can get that and I can review this movie again in more depth, because there'll be more stuff. So yeah, now let's talk about the humor in this movie. This movie has some pretty hilarious parts. Like, this movie's funny. Like at the beginning, Baron von Strucker, he says, "Oh, we're gonna defeat the Avengers. We're not gonna surrender." And then he whispers and looks over at the doctor, the evil doctor. He's like, "I'm gonna surrender. So what do we do?" And then there's another part where he's like, "We're going to push forward, we're going to beat the Avengers," and then one of the other nerdy scientist guys, he's like, "But they're the Avengers." And it's like, there are a whole bunch of funny parts in this movie. And then Tony Stark, he says a bad word, and then Captain America reminds him of his language, and that comes back multiple times during the movie. Like, every time somebody says something like a bad word, Tony would be like, "Oh," Cap would say, "Watch your language." And it just comes back multiple times. Everybody makes fun of Captain America about them watching their language. It's hilarious. Ultron he's a pretty funny villain. He has a lot of charisma for a robot. He kind of has humanity, but then he doesn't. I like him. I like this, the dynamic of the team more than the first Avengers movie, because you get to see how they work together. Like, coming to some action scenes. Let's talk about the action scenes where this is all going to come back into play with the dynamic. Thor and Captain America, they have so many different moves that they do, like in terms of a combination of the shield and the hammer. And there's one scene at the beginning of the movie where I guess they learned it from the first movie. Captain America gets his shield, Thor hits it, and it makes a sonic boom and like knocks everybody out. There's another scene. Captain America hits his, he gets his shield up in the air. Thor hits it with the hammer, and then it knocks out like 20 Ultron bots or something. And I could only like the action scenes. Like, this movie is just filled with action. I'm speechless, because I think the action scenes are way better than the first Avengers movie. Like, every single character just about uses Captain America's shield. And then Vision, one of the newer Avengers who comes around the end of the movie, he uses Thor's hammer a couple of times. Captain America even moves Thor's hammer in the scene after the first fight scene where they're fighting Hydra and they get the scepter. Like when they're all partying and stuff, he lifts the hammer just a tad bit, and I'm going to show you a picture of the party scene just so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's talk about the characters. Now, Captain America, the leader of the team, he has really taken on the role of the leader. He's a good leader. Now, he like makes sure that everybody's safe. He's kind of the conscience of the team, and I like it. He's all about freedom and whatnot. And him and Tony they kind of clash as far as their ideas go in this movie, and he's about the same. I mean, if you watch the Captain America movies, you know what I'm talking about. He's that guy. He's noble, he's smooth and whatnot. He's agile, strong. You know what I'm talking about. Iron Man, once again, he's cocky, smart guy. Thinks he knows everything. Kinda doesn't. Means well. But, you know, as far as building Ultron, he means well, but it doesn't turn out so good, if you know what I mean. Thor, well, basically, he's the same. Everybody's the same. Just, they go into more detail as far as their personalities and their personal lives in this movie. Black Widow's here, like, there is a scene in this movie where Scarlet Witch, one of the newer Avengers, along with her brother Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch gets into all of the Avengers' minds, and Captain America, his fear is kind of not being there for Peggy after the war ended, because, you know, he went into the ice and he wasn't there for the rest of the soldiers that died. Because he feels like he should have been with them. He should have either grown with them, grown old with them, and been with Peggy, or died during the war. And as far as Tony goes, he is scared of another alien invasion, which we kind of saw in Iron Man 3. He just fears that another Chitauri invasion would happen, and he's scared of killing all of his friends, or like getting them killed. Thor, his vision of the future, or fear, is strictly setting up for other movies, like the Infinity War, with the Infinity Gems and the Infinity Gauntlet. I'll show you a picture of that. And if you don't know what those were, those are the Infinity Gems, which have come into play in every, well, not every Marvel movie, but most of them, like Loki's scepter. And that comes back into play later on with one of the other characters, so I'll get to that later. The Cosmic Cube, or the Tesseract, which was also in the Avengers and Captain America. The Power Gem, or the Orb, that was in Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Ether, that red liquid floating stuff that was in Thor: The Dark World. And something else that Thor is seeing is Ragnarok, or the end of times. Yeah, and that's setting up Thor 3, because Thor 3 is called Thor Ragnarok. That's all his vision was. It was just setting up Infinity War and Thor 3. Okay, and Black Widow, her fear or vision was just her back in the past. I guess she has a bad past with the Red Room. And the Red Room is where they train the girls to become assassins and killers. And I kind of don't want to go into detail on what hers was. You'd have to see it yourself. I'm not that great at explaining hers. So, yeah, Hawkeye, he doesn't get controlled and see his vision, because what he does to Scarlet Witch is awesome. As soon as she comes up behind him and is about to show him his worst fear, he puts a electric arrow to her forehead, and it shocks her. And Hawkeye is awesome in this movie. Like, he says, I'm not going to go through that whole mind control thing, because I already did it before. Because, you know, in the first movie, he was under Loki's control for, like, majority of the movie. Hawkeye's character is so well written in this movie. Like they show his family and his kids and his wife. His wife is pregnant with their child, and when the child is born, his middle name is Pietro, and Pietro is Quicksilver's first name. So I guess let's talk about Quicksilver. Quicksilver is sister to Scarlet Witch, but in the comics, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are the children of Magneto, but Fox owns the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, so you won't hear anything about them being mutants or Magneto. You won't hear anything about that. So how they set up Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, it's they kind of go into how their backstory was as far as them not being mutants. Like their parents were killed by a missile, and they don't like Tony Stark because the missile that killed their parents had Stark Industries on it, so they don't like Tony Stark. They don't like the Avengers because they think that they're killers. And Ultron uses that to his advantage to manipulate them, to turn them against the Avengers in a majority of the movie, and then around the end they turn to the good side. And since this is a spoiler video, Quicksilver dies. And also, this is not the same Quicksilver that's in X-Men Days of Future Past. They're different Quicksilvers, different timelines. I'm not going to get into it. But, yeah, Quicksilver dies, which I kind of don't like, because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are so close in the comics. They're twins, so how could they not be close? And, yeah, I feel like his character was kind of wasted, because when he dies to save Hawkeye, you get why he did it, but I kind of just don't like it, because that means he's not going to be there unless they resurrect him for Avengers 3, which I guess they can do that with one of the Infinity Stones. But, yeah, I mean, he gets shot up by Ultron because Ultron's being a jerk and whatnot. Yeah, I feel like his character was wasted, so I just don't like that he wasn't at the end of the movie, because everybody, like, around the end of the movie, it ended on a pretty good note with everybody, except for, I guess, Hulk and Black Widow, because Hulk and Black Widow have a romance in this movie. Just a slight romance, and Hulk gets launched off in a Quinjet, presumably into the middle of the ocean. So we don't know what's going on with the Hulk right now. So, yeah, let's talk about the Vision. Now, the Vision, he stole the show once he showed up, in my opinion. I love the Vision. That dude might be one of my favorite Avengers now. Let me show you what he looks like. Ultron is the one to create Vision in the movie, and they basically treat Vision like a god in this movie, because basically he is a god. He has one of the Infinity Gems, the one that's in Loki's scepter. He has it in his forehead. He picks up Thor's hammer like it's nothing because he's worthy. He is a god, essentially. Like, when they ask, like, what exactly he is, he says, I am. That's something that God would say. That's God-like. And I swear he has one of the best lines in the movie, because Ultron is talking to him like at the end of the battle. He says, you're incredibly naive. And he says, well, I was born yesterday. That, I thought it comes into play really well. You'd have to listen to it. It's not funny coming from me. Nothing is funny coming from me. But yeah. Vision is a god. He steals the show. His power set is awesome. He can fly, move, levitate through stuff. Using the Infinity Stone, he can shoot beams from his head. And in the movie, Vision, it was meant to be the next upgrade for Ultron, but they turned that around. That Vision was also in Thor's Vision. So, I guess that's how he got his name in the movies, I guess. So, now let's talk about Ultron, the big bad. I like him more than every other villain. He's funny. I mean, I think I've already brought this up, but yeah, I think I've already talked about Ultron. He's funny. You would like him. When you see the movie, you'll like him a lot. But he's very persistent when it comes to carrying out his plans. he sucks, people. And he has some of the best lines in the movie. Like, I can't tell you, like, how good his lines are. And James Spader does a great job doing the voice of Ultron, because he sounds menacing, but he sounds elegant at the same time. So, let's talk about more towards the relationships in this movie. Because, like I said before, Hulk and Natasha, or Black Widow, have a thing going for them, and Hulk, the whole movie's kind of hesitating on the idea of them having a relationship, because, you know, he's the type of guy that you don't have a family with. He's the Hulk, so, you know, just the littlest thing could get him mad, and then he could rage out and turn it into the Hulk. So, you know, and Natasha, her whole thing is like she can't have kids because she was sterilized back in the Red Room Project. So, like, they're both pretty messed up in terms of having a family, but they both want to find a way of making it work. But, like I said, in the end, it doesn't quite work out. So, let's talk about other stuff that this movie sets up. Ulysses Claw comes into play in Wakanda. And if you don't know who Ulysses Claw is, he is a Black Panther villain, and I will show you what he looks like. So that was Ulysses Claw. In the comics, he is missing an arm. He got it cut off, and in the movie, Ultron takes his arm off. Like, he cuts it off. And then he just keeps talking like it's nothing. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. I'm pretty sure you can handle it. And, yeah, he gets his arm cut off. He gets it replaced with a vibranium. And if you don't know what vibranium is, which is one of the substances that Ultron uses to upgrade himself, it is also what is used on Captain America's shield. And vibranium comes into play with Black Panther very largely, because it's basically, it's what his suit is made out of. It was made of like a mesh vibranium material, and his claws are made out of vibranium. And yeah, Ulysses has a vibranium hand in the comics, and he shoots like sonar, vibrations, whatever out of it. I guess he's a threat to Black Panther. I don't necessarily see him as an important villain, but I guess they'll make him important in the movie. So, yeah, that's whatever. And in the comics, if you did not know, Ant-Man is Hank Pym. Ant-Man, not Scott Lang, who's going to be Ant-Man in the new movie. Hank Pym, who's the predecessor to Scott Lang, creates Ultron. But in the movies, they switched it around to better suit the story for the Avengers, to make him a bigger threat, and I guess to kind of push Civil War, because in the movie, Tony Stark and Steve, Captain America, they fight quite often. Either verbally or physically fight. Like, there is a scene where they fight over whether the Vision should be brought to life. There's a fight whether they should try to end all of this before it even starts. It's like madness with those two. But they still like each other. So, let's talk about the new Avengers that is formed at the end of the movie. The team consists of Captain America, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Falcon from Captain America the Winter Soldier, and War Machine. I like this team because it's going to further develop these characters, I guess. Especially War Machine, because, you know, there's not going to be any more Iron Man movies, so I'd like to see more of him. And he actually did a couple of things in this movie, too, as far as action scenes go, and he had a pretty funny scene in the movie. And the banter between the characters at the party was funny, so yeah, let's get back to what I was talking about. I like this new Avengers team. They seem filled with mostly fighters, military guys, like, you know, Captain America, he's in the army. Natasha is a Russian spy. War Machine, army, well, Air Force. And Falcon was in the Air Force. So, yeah, and then Vision is going to be the big gun of the team. He's going to be the head guy. I guess he's going to take the place of Thor in terms of, like, being a god on the team. And I like this team. It's cool because that's how it is in the comics. The Avengers roster, like, the team changes quite often and frequently. Like, right now, they're, like, the Avengers team, Captain America is Falcon. Falcon became Captain America. There's a female Thor, all that good stuff. Now, let's talk about the end credit scene, because I don't want to make this video too long, which I know it is. The end credit scene is Thanos, big purple guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, and at the end of Avengers, who had the creepy smile. I'll show you a picture of this in a little while. He gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and he says, well, I'll do all this by myself. He says he can't get the Infinity Gems through other people. Because that's what he's been trying to do throughout the movies. Like, he was trying to get Loki to take over the world, and then hand him over the Infinity Gem in the staff in Avengers and give him the Tesseract. He wanted the ether from the Collector and the orb from the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, no, he wanted the ether from the Collector. He wanted the orb from Ronan. So, and there are also 2 more gems that he needs to get. But in order to get one of the gems, like the one that's in Loki's scepter, he would have to kill Vision. So I guess that's going to be kind of interesting how it plays out in Infinity War. So, yeah, that's it. He puts on the Infinity Gauntlet, and he says, I'll do this myself. And then there is no post-credit scene. That was the mid-credit scene, so just stick around. In the movie, all there is at the end of the credits, it just says the Avengers will return. So, I gave this movie a 9.5 out of 10. And once again, I'm still not sure if I like this more or less than the first Avengers movie. Like and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends and your family. And I'll see you next time on Jonathan's Rants.